As compared to last time, we're not going to lead you through every initial step by step. I'm going to start with a couple of questions that are up on the screen, and then I'm going to move into a few things that I think can help as you're more efficient. The question that was up on the screen at the very beginning, and I guess I just dropped my connection, was, I guess I need to know how to get to the G drive now. Let's answer that question first. So I'd like you at your table. We're only going to go 12 seconds. What's the G drive? How did you used to get there? Okay. And the way you had to get there before was what? Okay, make sure you're logged in, right-click, log in. When you went into My Computer, however, you saw the extra drives. I guess I could show it this way. Like, it just popped up on this kind of screen when you were looking at your PC. It was another one of those drives. You maybe didn't get there the same way that I did, but it was something like this. The way to get to those shared folders is going to fade away from the G drive. So if you still have the ability to do it that way, for some of you it might stay, but for many of you, being hardwired to the, I'll call it the dongle in your office, doesn't necessarily give you the path that you got there before. So I'd like everybody to go there a different way. So now you're a little bit familiar with saving things and how the new file structure at MLC works. I'd like you, and before I even have you go there, the word that was introduced to you in May, that some of you are very familiar with, some of you are a little bit frustrated with, some of you are in awe about, and some of you maybe don't know much about at all, is filer. So I do think it's worth a 15-second discussion at your table, and I will give you time to process. What's filer? How do you get to it? What does it mean? I will answer a bunch of questions. It's going to bring up other questions. I'm okay with that. But I want you to talk about what you know at your table about it, because it leads into what the G drive is and shared stuff, and I'll be quiet. I don't know what the future holds for accessing your G drive from it's going to be gone, right?
No.
Okay.
I got a question.
Sure.
I've noticed. Okay, so when I see the wisdom of moving things back off of Google Drive into Filer.
Sure.
Now, I've tried to access some of those through Filer, like Google Docs, and it says it's been moved to trash.
A Google Doc has no size. It is not a document.
No, but it's been moved to trash in Google.
What do you mean?
So, like, let's say I take my folder full of courses, put it into Filer. It copies them. It's fine. But if I go into Filer now and click on this Google Doc, it'll open it, but it'll say it's been moved to trash. So you need to restore it.
The only path I know that gets there for sure is folder to downloads to Filer.
You can't just click and drag?
I don't know. I don't know what a Google Doc does as far as Filer.
It depends whether or not you have Google Drive installed on your computer.
Okay. And I do.
Google Drive installed, but you couldn't drag and drop.
All right, so I'm going to answer a couple of questions. I'm okay with it if it leaves you with others. I make no guarantees about how you get to the G drive in the future. And for many of you, you can still do what Earl showed in the meeting, because Earl is the reason for this question. But I want to show you another way that will work anywhere you have the internet. Some of you tried this once with me, but then never have done this again. You can get to your files through filer.mlc/wells.edu. So when I type in a couple letters like FIL, it knew that, but I'm going to the website FILR is how filer is, .mlc/wells.edu. It leads me to the login screen. If you want to watch and then try, that's fine. If you want to try to keep up with me for the first part, I will stop and pause in just a minute. All I'm doing here is I'm going to log in with my Moodle portal Novell password, whatever you want to call it. For me, I'm not a secure person with it, so you're in. When Earl, if you were at the education side meeting, said you can go into your G drive, you can do it hardwired in your office right now. The other way to do it is when you're at the web interface of your files. The far right folder says Net Folders, and this is the G drive. So if you were on your phone and you just wanted to see the advising notes from whatever in the G drive, or whatever it is that you use for that shared folder, if you were at filer.mlc/wells.edu logged in, this groups folder is the G drive. The G drive was called the groups drive. And then the things that I have access to see from the G drive are there. Some of you might have more power or more folders in the G drive than what I do. So you may have more things that are there. When Earl was talking about you can go into advising, and see different things. This is one way that I can do this without having to be hardwired, because obviously I'm not, hardwired to any sort of computer in my office. And that would work anywhere that you have the internet.
That's awesome for us who are on the road, because before there was no way for us to get to it.
Right. I kind of want to, because that was a question that somebody had up there. It wasn't everybody's question, but for some of you it just brings up, oh yeah, you can access your files a different way. It's not that there aren't other ways to get your folders. Maybe you did some things like tagging a folder and stuff like that. That still works. That's still a path.
I was never able to find a G drive either. I could find Windows.
Right, so in the far right, where it says Net Folders, it doesn't say G drive, it just says groups. Yep, so if you didn't see what I'm pointing at, upper right, My Files is what shows up by default. These are the things that were in your old iDrive, WinData drive. Good.
But what if we have a special drive like an S drive, a shared drive is like when I work with one of the ladies in the office, we put things in the file.
Okay, so all I know right now, this will speak over some people's head, is the WinData drive, and this is the iDrive. The old P drive is actually here. I believe the only way to get to the G drive from this interface is the Net Folders, and it might be possible that for you have something with shared with me or shared by me.
So maybe that's a question for Jim.
Yep.
So what is all this stuff in here?
The S drive? What's that? S drive, is that accessible through Filer?
It depends what S drive is mapped to. Everybody's computer.
Yeah, well, I have access to the S drive. It's a shared file with the people in the administrative office, so we share there. And I haven't been able to get that through Filer. I mean, and that's...
Yeah, I'm not sure about the things that aren't directly mapped by default.
I probably won't lose it again, but
That's fine. I don't need to. It's just that I was trying to do that and it didn't work.
I don't want to speak to this too much because I don't think that's everybody's biggest question. But go ahead, Paul.
This is, if I was on the computer at home, this is how I would gain access to my files.
You have two ways to do it. This would be a way to do it without having to install anything. The other option would be to install the Novell Filer application on your computer at home.
I have to bring that in to do that.
So you don't. So if you remember what we did in May, when you logged into here, on the upper right-hand portion, when we clicked on your name at home or on any other computer you'd like it, we did download Filer desktop app. You've already done that on this computer, but you could do that definitely on a different computer.
Did you say WinData is supposed to be our iDrive?
Yes. Go ahead.
So when you install the desktop and it shows up as a regular drive, right?
Here's a question I don't know. I know where you're going to go with this question. Your real question is, are we connecting to the internet? Or are we connecting to a physical... Wait, sorry.
My real question is, does it not show up as my files in your Windows file system?
No. And I was going to get to this a little bit later, when you are in your normal folder structure, documents is not a WinData documents. It's a documents that's a local save on your C drive.
Okay.
Whatever you've saved called your files, or now are calling your files in the WinData drive, that will be a little bit different.
Okay. I was wondering because on my computer, when I click the quick access, it says my files, and that takes me right to WinData.
You may have created that yourself.
Accidentally. Okay. Happy.
Yeah. That wouldn't be the case for everybody. All right. I want to talk about a couple basics because now you are proficient. Like, there are things you know how to do that now you can look at your computer with a different light than you did 3 months ago. This may only be a 20-second discussion. I don't know if we need to turn and talk. But my question is, have you tried other login varieties, whether it's facial recognition and other stuff like that? And do you like it? Is it a pain? Do you like it in certain places and not in others? I want to open a discussion about that briefly.
Use the facial recognition, and it's amazing that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't think it
It's worked well for me, but my daughter can also use it and get in.
Sure.
Oh, really?
Because her face is enough like yours.
And I said, I'm sorry, honey.
It's light sensitive, right?
It is. Yep. So you can redo it in brighter light, and it hypothetically should do better. Jen just brought up an issue that I remember. If you turn on your machine and it says like turning on camera and it's just spinning and spinning and spinning, remember that you can just touch your screen or your mouse and you can log in the other ways just as fast. So if you're spending more, it's hard to pinpoint because the most common question a lot of people ask is, sometimes when I turn on my computer, okay, well, if you're in a classroom, for example, and you're staring at your screen and your class is there and it's just spinning, remember that when you log in, you can flip your screen up, touch your screen, touch your mouse, and you can do the login password or your PIN if you set up facial recognition. So for me, I do a 4-digit PIN that's faster than waiting for the camera. And it's not that you maybe haven't used that for several months now, but if you realize sometimes it's not perfect, or like I'm in my office and I have the standing desk thing, my thing is kind of here and I feel like I have to kind of twist and contort to get to my face where it needs to be. You don't have to always use it. Remember, if you did the facial recognition, you set up 3 ways to log in that won't change unless you change them. Okay. Some basic things. My question, let's go to the third one. So here I am. I'm teaching wirelessly. You won't be able to see it perfectly. I guess I can't turn this enough. I just connected a Miracast dongle from network services into the back of this machine. Any HD TV that has HDMI and a USB port can do this. My question is, if you have any aspirations for teaching wirelessly, how do you feel about your screen rotating or not? Have you played that game with your computer yourself? Have you rotated it? Have you locked it? I want you to have a little discussion with each other because I don't want you to see like I'm the expert and you are all experts in your own domains. So my question for you is rotation. Talk about it. Never happened. At some point,
Put yourself out there.
okay, so for some of you, that's a long enough discussion about what do you want to do with it. Some of you, this presentation isn't just for what are you doing while you're teaching. Some of this is for what do you want to do when you're just using your machine yourself. Just a reminder that if you don't like your screen locking, you can always take your machine and rotate lock your machine. So if you want it so that it's always locked in this position, I can click on rotation lock, and now when I'm turning my screen, it no longer is going to turn. Once again, I'll say it one last time, this isn't just, am I jumping into the deep end and going to do this teaching? This can just be, I'm sitting on my couch, and it just keeps flipping when I'm trying to read my emails. That can be the same thing. I leave mine on because rarely do I want to I don't use my screen this way. Go ahead, Jen.
Where's the rotation lock?
Sure. So on the right-hand side of your screen, there's two ways to do it. You can use your finger and drag from the right.
And if when he drags, nothing happens?
And if you can't do it that way,
And if rotation lock is light gray instead of white?
that means that it's not an option to lock it because you haven't ever, or recently, I'll make that up, haven't rotated it, so it doesn't matter. Oh, disconnecting the keyboard. Thank you. All right. I want to get to a really, really, really big item to me that is going to go in 7 directions, and that's okay because we have some time. And that's, how do you get to your programs and how do you get to your files? And I'm just going to throw 2 things out there. Let's just do one first. So the first thing that I'd like you to do and then show at your table is if you wanted to open up Word, how do you do it? And this is not to make you feel bad, but this is a refresher that there maybe are other things that you or I can help you with. So if you wanted to get to Word, how do you do it? Show your screen to other people. How are you? I don't know what part you need more or less, or...
I just got it, so I'm just
Okay.
trying to get as much as I can.
Definitely feel free if you want to sit by somebody else too and mull over things. We did like a really slow step-by-step in May, and this is just kind of a, hey, did you remember this and that?
It's a great picture.
Where is that at?
At the cathedral there. I took that last.
All right. So now I'm going to show everybody, not just you. All right, so I heard a bunch of different things. There is no right or wrong answer, and I really mean that. There might be ways that take 2 seconds longer, and you can decide what works for you. But here's a quick refresher. For me, I'm a fan of, if I want to find a program, I just type in a couple letters in the search bar on the bottom. And I don't know why it wants to drop my signal. I can play around with this some other day, but it'll be back up there. When I want to see whatever it is that I'm looking for, I type in something like WO, and Word is an option that shows up very, very quickly with it. Somebody asked the question of, how do you pin? Because a couple people wanted the program to show up like on the bottom of their screen. And the way that you do that is you have to be able to find the icon. And I wish I could show it better. So if I was in this classroom, I would probably try this a little bit before I do it all the time. Me talking isn't, I have this second projector just so that you can see it. If I wanted to pin a program, all I would have to do is take any of these programs, and I need to find a way to see the icon. Maybe they're the ones that you use most often. Sometimes you'd have to click on this screen. It's on all apps. I guess I can see it now. And if I find them in all apps, all I have to do is find the program that I'm looking for. Like maybe I want to pin Excel, and I right-click and pin it. Now I'll show you the couple different options. When I pin, it's asking you where do you want to pin it. Pin to start is this, what they used to call live tiles. I'm not sure if that's what it's still called. That probably is what some of you want, but probably not what most of you want. If you want to pin it somewhere else, just go to More, and you want to pin it to your taskbar. And by pinning it to your taskbar, the icon's going to show up as an option that's on the bottom, because the bottom ribbon of your screen is called the taskbar. If you think, I thought I was going to use that all the time. I haven't used that program for 2 months. This is looking cluttered. You can always right-click and unpin it from taskbar. Not all of you are going to do the pen thing with me, but here's a trick that I've recently used more often that won't necessarily make you a believer in the pen. But if you didn't know it already, the pen also has a button on the side. So there's a magnet that you connect it to your machine. There's a button on the bottom of the magnet like this. Like you can click it, it doesn't do anything. The reason that the button is there is if you're using your pen, you can actually press the button and touch your screen, and it will right-click wherever you touch. So I can touch the screen wherever I want. Yep. Because some people said, how do you right-click? Well, you can right-click with your trackpad. Some of you attach a mouse. That works fine, too. Okay, I want a quick show of hands. How many of you use these, the live tiles? You press the Windows button, or you use your machine as a tablet and you use the big icons. These. Daryl has a hand up. Anybody else? A few of you? Okay. Any suggestions of things you like or don't like, or why you like to do that, or?
I don't like so many on the bottom. I like to just click on and then click. The 2 clicks will get me instead of looking for where they are.
I like it for certain folders that I go to quite often. And just for the sake of, so I didn't have a ton of stuff here, like if I know I'm going into my PhD folder, if I know I'm going into my abstract algebra folder for a class a lot, I like pinning that to start, which is these, and then I can get there quicker. Now, some of you might say, I know how to get there one way, and as long as I know how to get there one way, I'm content because I know how to get there. And this isn't like to make you feel bad about it. Great. But for me, if I'm doing 3 clicks to get to the same spot, remember that I can take any folder that I like, and I could take these folders and I can pin those to the start, and those would show up in that same spot as well. Okay? Which leads me to folders. So what I'd like you to do is just open up your File Explorer. For most of you, you maybe have an icon on the bottom. Is that there automatically? Okay. And I think it's worth a 20-second discussion at your tables first about how have you set up your page? What do you go to most often? Do you use this pinning, frequent folders, recent files, frustrations, or things that you like or dislike? I don't really care if this turns into positive or negative, because I think you can learn from both. Start at your table. Mm-hmm.
James, if you wanted to put that file folder down in the taskbar.
I don't think you can.
But mine's there, his isn't.
Oh, just the general file folder?
Right. File export.
I'm just going to go with just type in File Explorer. And then, yep. That would be one way to do it is just type in File, right click that, and pin it to your task. Great, if you just do under. Okay, so
I take it from down that scrolling way on the left side to find the right. Not the fastest way.
my goal is to help you if you feel like you need to be helped, but get out of the way if you feel like you don't need to be helped. My question is, have you got used to this? What are things that you like or dislike with it? Anything that you want to share about your experience over the summer, or things that you weren't expecting to use a certain way? Earl?
Since I wasn't using Filer, this was my default way to find files. And I find that I can go down the very far left side and find the different drives, and it was most similar to what I was used to.
Sure. And what Earl said is something I think we demoed, that you can definitely, as long as you know that this PC, or sometimes it's already open, whether you do it this way or this way, you can get to your file folders. Great. Go ahead.
I should probably interject here, because I don't want to take up the time that you planned here. There's a lot of confusion with this, because some people in here are using Access databases, and we've had to go in and we removed Filer and installed the old client to log in, because Access doesn't work well with Filer, because Filer is actually downloading copies of the database, and then it can't write back to it. It's a long story, but so some of you still have the old client, which we used to call Novell. Novell has been bought out, so now on the newer machines it's Microfocus, and we don't know what to call it, so we're basically going to call our IDs just MLC IDs. So if we ask you what password are you using, we used to say the Novell password or the portal password. I think we're going to start referring to that as your MLC ID and password, and that's stored in this what used to be Novell's directory. That's where we get all our stuff from that directory, but it's no longer Novell. There's no red N anymore in the new installation. So all this is kind of confusing to people as we transition.
And what Jim just talked about there a lot to staff members, to some administration, for some of you like me, the common faculty. I don't really care what it's called that I log in with it. I just know there's the MLC ID makes sense. That's the way that I look.
There's two things now attached with that can cause some issues with you. When you change your MLC ID, which happens, I think, every 90 days.
It's now every 6 months now.
Yeah, it might be every semester.
Hey, you're here for the good news. Now you can leave.
When you change that password, your filer password does not change automatically, and you need to change it. Okay, so all of a sudden you can't get into your files anymore. It's because you changed your MLC password. And filer doesn't automatically change with it. We're trying to get a solution for that. And in addition, if you're using the academic wireless network, that one doesn't change either. Okay.
I'm going to when he says it doesn't change, it changes in the MLC system. Your machine just has to know that it's changed. So for each of those areas, you would need to log out and then log back in. So when he said your academic password hasn't changed, it changed. It's just your machine by default is using your old password. You have to tell it to use a new one. And whether it's academic, whether it's filer, or whatever might be exactly what Jim was talking about, each of those areas might kick an error at you at your 6-month passwords change, and all of those at some point will require you log off and then get back in. I'll go real briefly, but don't do this yourself because you don't need to. Most of those items are down at the bottom right-hand part of your screen. So, for example, when I'm logging into the internet, I'm on the academic wireless network right now. I could always take and disconnect and reconnect. I'm not going to do that because I don't see the need for it. But if you're having problems with it at the time of your password change, what Jim is saying is this is a place where just disconnect, reconnect it, and it will ask you for your password again. The same thing with...
You actually have to delete the connection.
Okay. The same thing with filer. Maybe you have or haven't realized that there's a little icon for filer that appears in that bottom right. Same idea. If you had a filer password issue, disconnect, reconnect. That usually is the case, will be your solution. But that's a really good point, Jim. Okay. I'm not going to have a lot more full group discussion. I just want you to know 3 or 4 different things, all lead you to the same path. Earl talked about one. The frequent folders, I think you understand what that means. Based on the size of how big these icons are, you may have more or less than what I have on my screen. I don't think I changed the size of anything. The most recent work makes a lot of sense. I use that all the time when I'm not as smart with where I saved my files. I know I saved it in this, and then I go back and I can see that at least within the last 20, no, you didn't save it where you thought you did. I think we talked a lot about pinning. The things that are pinned on the upper left are, for me, the folders that I want to get to the most often. So for me, I want to have an easy way to get to downloads, to documents, to pictures, my camera roll, and the WIN data. You may put other things there. You can take some of these folders and pin or unpin them from that spot. This is just quick access. By putting it in quick access, it also means that when you're opening up something like Word and saving it, it puts those folders at the top. So I'm just creating a blank Word document saying I'm going to save it on my PC. It's going to ask, hey, do you want to save it in any of these places? I don't need to. The quick access places are always in the upper left every time you save something. Am I speaking gibberish or too fast or too slow or go ahead?
So if I want to save it to the iDrive, then I need to tell it to save it to the iDrive.
Yes.
That's where I go to.
Yes.
But I can do quick access, and then from quick access go to iDrive later.
Yes. Also, when you're saving, Word or whatever you're using is very smart. It's going to ask you, like, are you looking to save it in this place or the other place? So last week I was finishing up some courses with Jim Grunwald for continuing ed this summer, and it knew, hey, you're saving in those folders quite often. I don't need to go back to WinData, into PhD, into the course name, into... It knows, hey, these are the places you've been working this summer. If I click on something like, hey, I'm going to go into lesson 6, it's already zooming through my file structure to know where to go. But I think that's a big idea. I'm not sure if that was a drastic change for you or a learning curve or a kind of a learning curve. Okay. This may be a 10-second touchdown or maybe it'll be a 10-minute point, but how is your internet connection with academic doing? Your machine is on, it's had no problems, your issues, we're okay with that? Ever? You're still not on?
In here, in this room. Yeah.
So that would be, if I'm just throwing it in a proactive way, it probably would be worth doing 10 minutes of work in your classroom if you're planning on using something like this ahead of time to just see if the connections are where you think they should be. The part that I'm not sure about is why you would have a full connection to guest and not academic. Because truthfully, anywhere you see one, you should see both. Jim?
It's very possible your password changed recently. If you changed your password recently, when we did the training back in May, if you changed it, then you can't connect to the academic until you delete that connection and reconnect.
Okay. So to answer Jen's question that she didn't ask, so how do you delete a connection? Thanks, Jen. So I'll show you how to do that. This is a please don't do it as I'm doing it unless you can play the game, it's fine. But what I did is I know that I'm looking for this wireless icon. Sometimes it's down on the bottom and I can see it really clearly. Sometimes I can't. But anyways, I'm clicking on that wireless. It's showing me all the networks I can see. What Jim is saying is more than just disconnect. I should have the ability in... Jim, stop me if I'm wrong. I can... If I want to delete that option, how can I do that?
Manage known networks. So, where you were again.
Yeah. So watch. So this would take me to like the networks. When in doubt, just walk up to Jim and he can help you. Right?
Manage known networks. You want to select that one. And then you want to go to academic. And when you select it, you can forget it. So you want to forget it. That eliminates your password, the whole thing. Then go back and you'll see it.
The other reason why that exists, now that I'm thinking aloud, is you can see all the different places I've connected ever on this device. So Deb and Dave is my parents' house in Illinois, and Monkeys is the cabin we stayed in Illinois. I mean, like, I have no chance of ever going there. I don't know if that really slows down anything, but this list became very, very long. Every place I've ever connected is saved on here so that I don't have to re-log in when I go to my parents' house. If you forgot what he just said, they're there to serve you. They are, so...
Bob has created a website called Knowledgebase. It's kb@mlc-wells.edu. Every time we have issues, he posts something on there, how to solve it. So that might be a shortcut or a link you want to put on your browser.
This knowledge base is at the end of this presentation that you got emailed again. But knowledge base does have quite a number of things on here geared towards you. Most of you faculty members using a Surface Pro 4. Sometimes that's the easiest solution, sometimes it's not, but there are quite a number of things that are there. G drive, tinning, portal move. I think all of that stuff we've done enough. I think we've talked about getting to your files and your programs. This is a good place for another talk. This is True Confessions. So you have a pen. Some of you
Stored it so that we won't lose it.
Stored it someplace so you won't lose it. My True Confessions is this is pen number 2. The other one, I think my 4-year-old daughter threw away. Because why would they pick up their own? So I did find, like we scared you, like this is like retail value 70. I found it for under 30 new on Amazon, and it came with a case and the other what are those called? The leads, I don't know. So I can do a thin, a thick, different styluses. It also has a way to connect and disconnect and attach my pen to my device if I want to. I took the risk of like new on Amazon, and all it had was a sticker on it that said it was investigated, and it was less than half price. So, but I didn't let you talk. I want you to talk. So your plan is what? And then I'm going to shape your vision a little bit, but not scare you. But I want you to talk to each other, not just me speaking. So. I need to be in line. Your internal clock is saying, James, you didn't advance. It's going to sleep right now.
No, I was just telling Jim that I couldn't connect to the wireless. Jim, do you want to talk about back to the station quickly too?
Yep.
We're going to put longer cord. If there's a podium like this, we'll leave the short cord, but where there's the desk.
Yes. Yep, it'll definitely be in the next 10 minutes. We'll get to it. Okay. So now I just want you to think about a couple things, and if you're interested in more at 10 o'clock, we're just going to show more pen things. I think you need to think of it as one of 3 options. One option is you don't see it being used much, and you store it someplace, and it's safe for 4 years, and you're saving money with it. And that sounded condescending, but honestly, if in your normal usage you're not using it, it's your resources to manage. The other 2 options are you thinking about it for classroom use, or are you thinking about it for personal use? And I'm not convinced I'm going to use it all the time, every day in the classroom, but there's things I like more and more about my pen for personal use. So I'm going to just show you a couple things that I like about my pen. The longer session is to come. So if you're saying, how did you do that? How did you do that? Stick around. But Windows 10 just came out with an update, a major update called the Anniversary Edition. And part of their Anniversary Edition is a bunch of new inking tools. And these are inking tools that I would say are best used for personal uses. So for example, if I'm sitting at a meeting or in a class and I don't want them to hear me typing, but I want to take notes, you have the full ability to take sticky notes that are handwritten however you would like. So I can write on here all that I'd like. If I have this connected to my Windows account through Cortana, this is a little bit more advanced stuff I talk about. When I wrote down call home tomorrow, it knows that tomorrow means something. It's connected to my calendar, and all of this is kind of sunk together so that now it's more than that. It knows what I wrote, and I can add that to my Google Calendar directly. So for me, that isn't something that I'm necessarily going to go to my classroom and use. Although I have students are doing group work, I could use this just like paper. This isn't the debate of whether or not carrying the clipboard is more efficient than this. Some of you are going to say clipboard is better, and I'm not going to disagree with you. But that's one thing. So it has sticky notes. The sticky notes appear and disappear just like any other app. It has the ability to do Sketchpad. If you've seen the commercials, they have all these beautiful, artists can do magical things. Well, they use a program like the Sketchpad that comes for free. I'm not going to show that. It's what you'd expect. If you want to do beautiful drawings, you can do that. I have had some classmates at the U that use the Sketchpad as a bigger area to write notes because the sticky note isn't big enough. It doesn't hyperlink to anything. And then the third option that I only installed this 2 days ago, so by no means am I the expert, but I'm interested in is Screen Sketch. You have the ability to take a snapshot of your screen by just pressing Print Screen. Print Screen is right above the number 7. What that does is whatever is on your screen gets copied and you can paste it wherever you want. But by using Screen, somebody like, oh, didn't know that. Print Screen used to be that you're sending it to a printer. Right now it's just pressing Print Screen takes whatever is on your screen, copies it, and you can paste it into Word, you can paste it into Google Docs, you can paste it into wherever you want.
So it is a copy that you can paste.
It's a copy, it's
Yes.
a copy paste.
It's a full screen, not like
Full
snipping
screen.
tool where you could
Full
take
screen,
apart.
yep. But Screen Sketch also does the same thing. But if you wanted to take a screenshot and write on it, okay, so when I need to email or whatever it might be, I understand this isn't the best example to use, but here's my email, whatever it might be with it. This is now a screenshot that I can fully animate. So some of you might be doing something in a class where you want them to see a certain screen. Here's where you need to go. Here's where you need to click. This is exactly what it is, and there's maybe ways to do it, but it was more difficult. This gives you the ability to do this and then save it in a bunch of different formats. By default, it saves it as a picture, a PNG file, and then you can put that wherever you want it.
So
But
save
all-
as.
all the-
If I do save as to a Word document, can I edit it? Or is it?
This is a picture
So
file.
I can't I can't do any editing to it.
You can do the things you can do to a picture. You can definitely type over it.
That makes sense.
You can do other stuff like that. You can. I haven't tried all these tools. I can copy it and paste it onto documents. So I just hovered over. I know you can't see it perfectly, but I can save it as a picture. I can also copy it someplace. So it's the same thing where I can copy it, paste it onto something else. There's a lot of different tools like highlight, marker, whatever. Like I said, I'm intrigued. I'm not convinced that changes my world. But if there's places where you want to draw students or faculty members or administration or your wife or husband to something, whatever it might be, it's another option that you can have with the newest update to Windows 10, which I'll show at the very, very end because I don't think that's the most important thing. You can set up your pen to do a bunch of different things. It works the best with Microsoft programs, which brings up the question of, are you going to go all in Microsoft or Google or... I don't have the answer for you to do that, but there's things that you can do in Microsoft with this fantastic Microsoft device. You have to decide are you in that camp further or not? That's not for here or there. There is a link for how to change your pen into advancing and moving forward and backwards with clicking on your pen. I tried it myself when I couldn't get it to work. I know a couple people took theirs up to either Aaron Spike or Bob Martin's, and I think it works. So I wasn't smart enough to know what the script that runs behind the scenes actually works, because I don't really need one click to take me to Chrome. I don't use that very often. Good.
It's not a question about pens, about.
Good.
What about DVDs? Do you recommend a device that we should get, or could you recommend one? I'm guessing it's just we have to buy a separate.
We've got a bunch of them you can check out from Network Services. They're about $23 a piece. If you want to purchase one for your,
We can check one out.
You can check one out from us.
Same thing if you're going out on the road and presenting. I don't know how many they have in Network Services, but ample supplies that anytime I needed something for a week this summer. So if you're watching Jim Grunwald's computer here, this would be, I went to Trinity St. Luke's and presented something. You get this little adapter, it connects to whatever setup they have at their school.
Can we check one out in your office for the semester? Or would you rather not long term?
We'd rather not long term. We'd have to get more of them probably, but if you use it a lot, I suggest purchase one for your department or whatever and just keep it. Like I said, the ones that we are checking out were $23. They're not very expensive.
Yeah, the question I had was, I taught a course off campus this summer and did the little adapter thing with the HDMI connection to a projector. And when I did my PowerPoint presentation, it worked great. When students were asked to do presentations, and some of them did a Google presentation, they brought it in, it appeared on the screen, but it did not appear on the projector.
Yep, so what's happening, I'll answer your question. Some programs, when you click present, automatically change your display from duplicate the screen to extend the display. Because depending on what program you're using, and usually PowerPoint's a culprit, but Google Slides can be as well, depending on how they've set it up, that the second that they click present, it's going to try to give you it's going to extend it because it's thinking you want to see your speaker notes, you want them to see something else. And if one of the screens is blank, then you get worried. So one of the easiest ways to do that is in both Google Slides and in PowerPoint. When you click present, there is an option right at the top of the screen as soon as you present that says, do you want to extend or do you want to duplicate? I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show it because I'm not hardwired. But if I present this, my screen is not the same as their screen. What happened at the top of my screen is it says display settings, and I can change it right away to duplicate. And if I duplicate my view, I'm going to have no problem seeing exactly what they see. The reason that question comes up a lot is maybe you have a PowerPoint that has hyperlinks. It's fine to extend your display if you're not going somewhere else, but if you want to go from here to a YouTube video or whatever it might be, then you don't see what they see or vice versa, and you have some issues with it. I do want to talk about two more things before we're done for sure. Camera is not as big a deal. We showed it before. I was going to do more, but we don't have the time with it. Remember that you do have the ability to use the application camera to video pictures of whatever it is that you want to see. This could be a personal use or this could be a professional use. But I know that for me personally, I use it more than I thought because I have my device in my classroom and I can video students doing actual work and share it in ways that make sense for my uses. Another 1-minute touchdown is printing. Have you printed from your new device?
Yes, it doesn't work.
Joyce ran into a problem recently. I just heard from network services that there needs to be an update to I'll just say the print client. If I'm saying the wrong terms, it doesn't really matter. And that's going to happen by Monday. So it could be that your printer isn't installed correctly and you have to reinstall it and you can't do it till Monday. Okay. But in order to get to any printer, hypothetically, and I don't say this in a contest, it will work. It works well for most of you. The website, just like Filer, it's iprint.mlc stuff. And that's where you find the list of printers, and you have the ability to install what you're looking for. I'll go quicker than what you can catch up to. Remember, if you went to iPrint, your computer already has it installed. You don't have to install anything. You just have to choose the printer that you want to install from the list of what's here. What I know from Ken Jones when I talked to him yesterday is until Monday it's hit and miss. It's not a guarantee that if you had to install something today, some people it's working no problem and others it isn't. But from this list you can install the printers you want. Go ahead.
Install the printer at home.
Yes.
That's
But you don't
be on the list.
Correct. So for example, I have a wireless printer at home. I can print there right now from MLC.
And when you're at home with that printer connected, it automatically senses that and you can select it.
So I'll just follow directions on how to hook up to a printer at home.
Yeah, when you go to print, yeah,
Right, it'll give me a.
And that depends on your printer and stuff.
But that's something that'll just pop up and say connected.
Yep. I definitely wanted to talk about this now that you can see it. This is true confessions. This is not to make you feel bad.
I haven't been to all of my classrooms yet. Have you been to your classroom and see and tried to physically?
Okay. No. Yes. Okay. Okay. I'll just talk about it from my vantage point. It's a very easy setup. There is this box that's here. There's a power strip that's very, very close to that. And there's a USB hookup. I'm not going to hook it up just because I'm running it a different way. But all you need to do is take the USB and put it in the side of your machine. The first time you do it, you probably will have to download a driver. So when I put it in, at least for me, when I was doing it, 30 seconds later it says, hey, we noticed that you're connected to Display Link. And it asks me, do you want to download the driver for blah, blah, blah? And I just had to say yes. So for me, I would have had to do that at least 2 minutes before my first class because it worked just fine right after that. Jim?
Those of you that have done that anniversary update, I don't know if you ever, you said you did, how long did it take? About an hour?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a long update because it basically rewrites the whole system. If you do the anniversary update, you will have to download the latest driver. We already have the driver installed on the version that we gave to you, but if you did the anniversary update, and you can tell that you have it because you'll have that little icon at the lower right-hand corner for those special programs that James told you about. Can't see very well on that screen, but there's a little pin.
Right.
That appears in the taskbar.
Yeah, there's a little pen that appears down here, and this changes a little bit, but yeah.
So right now you won't have to install it. You should be able to go and connect it directly. But if you install the anniversary update, you do have to download the latest driver and update it.
And I guess it's just my encouragement. You have time, but to check each of your classrooms. The issue that I've found most often from talking to some faculty members isn't that it didn't work. But if you attach it and you get a weird version of the display size, like there's 7 inches on both sides, that's the way it always was, it's not the right way. I would love in the next 2 weeks that's when you're talking to Bob Martins or whatever it might be. Can you come in my room and make sure the display setting is set up? If you understand how to work display settings, it usually is just something that for you personally, you can just change the display settings by right-clicking in the main area, and there are a lot of different options there. If you're familiar with that, you could probably troubleshoot it yourself, but the biggest issue I found wasn't that it didn't work. It was that I'm not sure that's the way I would want it to look on day one if I'm writing on my smartboard or if I'm showing a movie and I am only using half of the screen space.
This link up is not like the old docking stations, because this is not powered.
Correct.
And what are you finding is life for this? Because if I set it up ahead of time, as I did for yesterday's 2-hour meeting, am I going to have sufficient battery life on this to last 3 hours?
So I would say, I think your personality is kind of like mine at times, that you probably want to play it safe. The reason that the power strip is here is that you can bring your power cord with you, and if you don't have to move, you can draw power and play it 100% safe. The real question you ask me is how much battery life does this have? And the easy answer is it depends. There are things that suck battery life. The 2 biggest culprits are probably Smart Notebook and Chrome if you run a lot of stuff on it. And I'm a culprit of both. So I can have times where it's 3.5. I know there are faculty members that have always gotten 7. Does anybody want to speak to your battery life? Long, short, horror story?
The more tabs you like to keep open, the more battery life. Essentially, every time you open a tab in the browser, you're reopening the browser, and that's going to take resources. If you are one who never puts anything away on your desktop, your battery life is going to suffer for that too.
Right. True confessions of my wife, through me, is she never has less than 50 tabs open. Go, Keith.
Is there a way to schedule updates so that you don't get caught in an update right at the beginning of the class?
The yes. There's a but to that answer.
You have the ability to set the active time of your computer when you don't want to do updates. Like you might want to set it from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. And then it'll do updates at other times, but you have to have your computer on to do those updates. So if you plan on updating overnight, just leave your computer on and plug in some power.
Right. The biggest issue is when it's doing, like, where's your computer when it's doing it updates, and when are you turning it on again, or is it on? Because the issue is you can run it in the background, but if it's off, the first time you turn it on might be first hour, and then.
I was helping Larry Latito a minute ago, and I said you need to restart your computer, but when I went to the restart, it said update and restart. I said, well, you don't want to do that now because who knows what update it's doing, and it could take an hour. So
I'm going to show you 2 more quick things, and this is all in the email that you got from me, at least most of you have gotten from me. We've talked about projectors. The link to the knowledge base is in this presentation, setting up shortcut keys, other things like that. The last thing was I talked about there's this big update called the anniversary update. You don't have to use it. The biggest things that I think it provides for techie people is it's a little bit more stable. A little bit more stable drivers, a little bit more stable graphics, video drivers, whatever you want to call it. If I just spoke words that don't make sense, just nod, thank you. And to have some more pen features. So the things that I showed you that I'll show more in this session, it adds to it to treat this like an iPad in some ways. The link to how to install that is on here. I tried to find negatives because I've only had it for 2 days and I have no negatives. I found some griping people online and I put a little bit there. I think they're fairly appropriate gripes. It's things like they had to restart again, it slowed down this, that, or the other. I don't know how much of that is legit. This anniversary update had a soft rollout for people like Jim several months ago. But the full-blown one, I think, was August 2nd, so it really has only existed for a week and a half. If that scares you, just wait. If it doesn't scare you,
I did it already.
Yeah.
It takes a while. Yeah, set aside an hour.